tiny virus brought humanity to its knees, affecting every corner of the globe. Covid-19, also known as the coronavirus.
In the past 2 weeks, the number of cases of COVID-19 outside China has increased 13-fold, and the number of affected countries has tripled. There are now more than 118,000 cases in 114 countries, and 4,291 people have lost their lives. Thousands more are fighting for their lives in hospitals. In the days and weeks ahead, we expect to see the number of cases, the number of deaths, and the number of affected countries climb even higher.
Over the following months, the casualties soared dramatically, with COVID-19 claiming nearly 7 million lives around the globe. The pandemic had stark, damaging impacts on the global economy. Due to the outbreak of COVID-19, which negatively affected most businesses around the globe, the world's collective GDP dropped by 3.4%. In fact, the pandemic cost the global economy over $2 trillion only in 2020. Although COVID-19 treated the rich and the poor equally, it exposed deep-rooted inequities between richer and poorer countries. While richer nations were able to stockpile these life-saving resources, poorer nations were left to fend for themselves. Soon, COVID-19 became more than a pandemic. It plunged the world in a chaotic and hectic situation. From allegations of mask theft to accusations traded between countries. One of the early controversies surrounding the COVID-19 outbreak involved Israel's theft of masks. In March 2020, reports emerged suggesting that Israel had confiscated a shipment of masks destined for the Palestinian Authority. This incident sparked outrage and condemnation from various quarters. China was the first country where COVID-19 was reported back in November 2019. This made China a convenient scapegoat for the U.S. and some Western nations.
You don't hear them talking about COVID. To be specific, COVID-19. That name gets further and further away from China as opposed to calling it the Chinese virus.
Accusations flew back and forth, with the U.S. blaming China for not containing the virus effectively, and China retaliating by accusing the U.S. of spreading misinformation. Instead of addressing the public health crisis, the Trump administration resorted to a blame game and leveling unfounded allegations. They claimed that China was responsible for the spread of COVID-19, politically motivated allegations that were never conclusively proved.
Why do you keep calling this the Chinese virus? There are reports of dozens of incidents of bias against Chinese Americans in this country. Your own aide, Secretary Azar, says he does not use this term. He says ethnicity does not cause the virus. Why do you keep using this? A lot of people say it's racist.
It's not racist at all, no, not at all. It comes from China. That's why. It comes from China. I want to be accurate. Yeah, please, John, please. I have great love for all of the people from our country, but as you know, China tried to say at one point, maybe they stopped now, that it was caused by American soldiers. That can't happen. It's not going to happen, not as long as I'm president. It comes from China.
Western media played a significant role in amplifying these allegations, contributing to a growing anti-China sentiment. The portrayal of China as the villain overshadowed the collaborative efforts required to combat the pandemic globally.
So once this sort of mantra, this narrative that China is to be feared or to be hated, has taken hold as a consensus position within the U.S. establishment, then any voice that says, well, look, China's really made great progress on COVID. While we had 1.1 million deaths in the United States and 100 million people infected, especially when when COVID was at its most virulent during the Delta variant and earlier, China prevented all of that. Instead of acknowledging with objective faculty that these are true facts and that China did well and that we would all benefit from cooperation between China and the United States, if someone raises that kind of perspective, that kind of voice, then they're considered to be weak on China. So we have this kind of Cold War mentality where China is witch hunted, demonized, and it creates herd thinking within the United States. It's very, very unfortunate.
Similar media tactics were employed against Iran, with allegations of mass graves and accusations of mishandling the pandemic.
Well, Iran has been one of the hardest hit by COVID-19. The number of recorded deaths has jumped dramatically, even in the last day. But disturbing new images suggest that Iran's coronavirus epidemic may be even more serious than authorities there admit. Rebecca Collard has more.
Iran is now saying it has almost 13,000 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the country and that more than 600 people have died because of the virus. That's a 100% jump from yesterday when the Iranian authorities said just 500 people had died because of the virus.
The allegations by Western media were never proven. The media war against Iran came as the country was subject to the cruel U.S.-led sanctions, which even affected food and medical supplies. The sanctions imposed on Iran by Western nations further strained the country's healthcare system and hindered its ability to procure vaccines. However, Iran's efforts in developing its own vaccine underscored the nation's determination to overcome external pressures. The accusations against Iran, including doubts raised about the efficacy of its vaccine, were met with skepticism. Contrary to Western skepticism, Iran successfully developed its COVID-19 vaccine and initiated mass vaccination campaigns. The leader of Iran's Islamic Revolution, Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Khamenei, was among the top officials who received the homegrown vaccine. The domestically made vaccine not only contributed to controlling the virus within Iran, but also became a source of hope for other nations facing similar challenges. The COVID-19 outbreak exposed vulnerabilities in global healthcare systems. Above all, it unveiled how certain Western powers weaponize even health issues to demonize other countries. Allegations and smear campaigns, particularly by the U.S. and Western media, once again raised questions about the role of misinformation and geopolitical interests during times of crisis.